Hello everyone, my name is David Webb, and today we're going to go over 3 more terrible pieces of writing advice that you should never follow. Let's get started. Hello everyone, my name is David Webb, and I made this channel to give you the best tips on writing and creativity so you can finally finish your book or have that creative career you've always dreamed of. If you missed my last video on terrible writing advice, be sure to click the link in the tag right there. In that video, I talked about 3 particular pieces of bad advice that I'm very passionate about. And for those of you wondering why I never responded to your comments regarding that last tip in that video, the reason is that I'm going to actually make a video response to your comments. That last tip could have seemed a little ambiguous. So here in a future video, I'm going to clear things up. But for now, let's move on to this week's terrible tips. And be sure to stick around because the third one is one that I'm sure most, if not all of you have heard. And it sounds great, but it's actually seriously damaging to you as a writer. So let's get started. Tip number 1, said is boring. Now this is something that I've covered in a past video, link to that also in the card right there. So I'm not gonna spend too much time on it today. Essentially, many writers are obsessed with the idea that the word said is a bad word. It's the dirty 4-letter word that a lot of new writers are scared to use. Why? Because it's repetitive, because it's boring. This leads many writers to obnoxiously and erroneously using words that they don't need. Even J.K. Rowling took things too far sometimes. And I quote, "We're not going to use magic," Ron ejaculated loudly. Tell me, Joanne, do you really think that's the best use of that word? I get that she's British and they say things differently, but surely she realizes the connotations that we Americans have for that word. Regardless of what alternative words you use for the word said, you've got to remember that said is not dead. So many writers eschew using the word said because they believe that they can find more powerful words. Nothing is more powerful than the word said. Why? Because it's invisible. It has the exact opposite effect that so many writers believe. Writers are afraid that readers are going to take their book and throw it away because they've said the word said 50 times. But no one ever notices. It's so common and so versatile that the human brain doesn't even really see it. They skip over the word. All that they see is the identifier of the person speaking. It's completely invisible and therefore perfect to use. Don't be scared of the word said. Trust me, your editor will thank you for it. Next up, give each of your characters a dialogue quirk. I found this little gem on Instagram the other day, and I just about vomited. This is some of the most idiotic writing advice I have ever seen in my entire life. I'll put a screenshot of the Instagram post up here in a little screenshot somewhere so you can get a better idea of what this person was saying. Essentially, this person started with the base thesis that every character should have a unique voice. This is a great way to start a piece of terrible writing advice by starting with something that is actually true and then telling them to accomplish it in a really terrible way. Yes, each character needs to have a unique voice. That advice is solid. But do you want to know how to accomplish that? By letting the character's voice become subtext, something that's not implicitly read in the text. It's almost like a sixth sense. You sense the character's voice, you get a feel for who they really are by what they say, how they say it, and then their choices throughout the book. The author of this post suggests that we take a shortcut and suggests that we give each character a unique identifier, something obtrusively obnoxious, so that you can't help but realize, oh, it's this person talking, as if that wasn't already obvious from, the words Jane said. I am scared to read this person's book because she says, and I quote, "One of my minor characters turns almost everything into a rhetorical question. We'll take you there, yeah? One makes everything reflexive. Do not worry yourself." Let's just camp there for a second. You're saying that you're reading this book and every time this person speaks, they say, "Do not worry yourself. Take yourself to the kitchen and get yourself something to eat. Get yourself out of bed." I would like to say one thing to the person who wrote this post, and it's take yourself to a creative writing class or get yourself a book so you can teach yourself how to write realistic characters. I get that she tries to qualify this advice a little later on in the post by going overboard in her first draft and then toning it down in editing. And I can only assume that that means that every single line her characters say is not dripping with this dialogue quirk. But it doesn't change the fact that every single character has one. She's made that clear. And this so-called tip, a dialogue quirk, is a really cheap way to give your characters personality. A very inauthentic and unrealistic way to give your characters a distinguished voice. Dialogue quirks are a tactic that you can use to make some of your characters distinguish themselves from others. They are okay when used sparingly. For instance, for those of you who have read The Light Thief, Salvador the Scourge is a famed warlord. He's a legend, almost melodramatically so, and he speaks melodramatically. You'll know that I was very well aware of this when I wrote it because I said so in the text. There are characters who roll their eyes when this guy speaks because he speaks with such flowery language. The long and short of it is if you give every single character a dialogue quirk, something that keeps cropping up, something that distracts the reader from the text, you will turn your characters into caricatures. And that is not good. For those of you who are still here in the middle of my rant, thank you for sticking around. For those of you who are with me for the first time, I wish I could say I really don't get this passionate in my videos that often, but I really do. So do me a favor, if you appreciate my harsh but loving style of advice, or if you've gotten any value from these tips, please hit the subscribe button and then hit the little bell to stay notified of all future uploads. It's completely free and I would love to see you back here. So do me a favor and hit subscribe. And now, tip number 3, write whenever you have time. This one is a tough one because it sounds good. It sounds very good. If you've been on my channel any length of time, you know that I am a strong advocate of writing every single day. So what's wrong with writing whenever you have time? Well, simply by saying that, you turn writing into a passive activity. You almost turn it into a chore. You basically remove yourself from the responsibility of being a writer. Saying that you'll do something whenever you have time gives yourself a reason not to do it. It becomes less of a priority. Don't get me wrong. It's good that you're writing, and it's good that you're saying that at least you will write. But if you're gonna take writing at all seriously, or if you want to be a better writer, or if you just wanna have more fun writing and you don't want it to be a struggle, you've got to be intentional about it. You need to decide, okay, I'm going to write at 5 o'clock today when I get home from work. I'm gonna wake up 30 minutes early tomorrow morning and get some writing done. After dinner, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write another chapter instead of watching a TV show. The simple act of making it a priority, saying that this is something that you are going to do, puts you back into control of your writing habit or your writing career, instead of letting the fates decide whether you actually get any writing done today. I strongly encourage you, don't use that language. Be active, be intentional about your writing, and watch it transform into something better. And with that, that is going to wrap up today's video. Today, I'm asking everyone who made it to this point in the video to do one favor for me, assuming you haven't already hit subscribe. Go down to the description, hit the Instagram link, and if you haven't followed me already, be sure to follow me, and then find my Instagram post where I show a clip of this video. And what I want you to do is share it and say one thing that you got out of it. Why? Not necessarily for self-promotion, but I do want to overwrite all of the awful writing advice out there. There are currently 1,930 likes on this awful Instagram post, so let's see if we can't get to that point. We're going to take back social media with good writing advice and downing the bad writing advice. I am all for a positive community of writers building each other up, but when you get on a public platform and you encourage writers to make terrible mistakes that make their characters look like idiots, I can't help but speak out against it. So please do us all a favor and go to Instagram and share the post. Thank you all again for joining me. My name is David Webb. Can't wait to see you all again and get some writing done.